The bubonic plague, scientifically known as Yersinia pestis, was a bacteria responsible for what became known as the Black Death that swept through Europe, Asia, and Africa in the 14th century. It alone killed an estimated 50 million people, including an estimated 25 to 60% of the total population of Europe at the time, marking it in the history books as one of the worst plagues in recorded history. Humans were ill-prepared in the ways of science and medicine to combat the onslaught of such a bacteria. Stupidity led to treatments that proved inconsequential or further weakened victims. This included bloodletting, drinking vinegar, flagellation, or the action of whipping oneself as punishment for sin, and even eating toxic materials such as arsenic and mercury. It was not solely the bacteria, but also human stupidity that caused the tragedy of the Black Death. Yersinia pestis is a bacteria, and as such is treatable with antibiotics. It's for this reason that Yersinia pestis is no longer a scourge on humanity. However, time brings new challenges, such as COVID, also known as SARS-CoV-2, which is an acronym for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. And much like the Black Death, it is not solely the virus that has caused the tragedy of the COVID pandemic, but also human stupidity. And so long as that human stupidity persists, so will COVID. The World Health Organization was first notified of pneumonia cases of an unknown cause in Wuhan, China on December 31st, 2019. These cases would later be identified as being caused by COVID, and professionals now believe that it's possible COVID had circulated months prior to these cases, undetected by doctors who assumed their patients' symptoms were caused by something other than a yet-to-be-identified disease. On February 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization gave COVID its official name in the International Classification of Diseases, a manual used for medical diagnoses. What then followed was a massive focus on researching this new virus and realistic warnings by professionals of the virus's potential impact on the world. And this is where human stupidity threw fuel on the fire. Let's first understand what a virus is, though, as the majority of people haven't taken a microbiology or virology course. A virus is a submicroscopic infectious agent. Interestingly, a virus is not alive by our standard understanding of what it means to be living, though some professionals still argue the meaning of quote-unquote living. A virus is simply genetic material such as DNA or RNA, which is enveloped by a protein coat and sometimes lipid layers that protects that genetic material. And without getting too specific, when a virus enters the body of an organism, it seeks out the victim's cells. It attaches to a cell using its proteins and injects its genetic material into that cell to hijack control of it. It then subsequently forces the cell to replicate the virus's genetic material. The cell eventually dies, and a plethora of virus is then released into the victim's body to continue the process. Viruses, again, have varying differences in structure and capability, but this is the basics, and it is the least of what you need to understand COVID. It was discovered that COVID spreads from person to person, most commonly by liquid expelled from the mouth and nose of an infected human. And given that it takes time for a virus to replicate and be discovered by the immune system, a person could transmit the disease without actually feeling sick, also known as being asymptomatic or without symptoms. In response, it was suggested that people wear masks to cover their mouth and nose, and to social distance or remain at a rational distance from others. Considering our current knowledge of bacteria and viruses, this made sense. But there is no limit to human stupidity, and very quickly a large population of humans chose to contradict rationality.
We will get together and do a citizen's arrest on every single human being that goes against the freedom of choice, okay? You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that that mask is killing people. It literally is killing people. And we the people, are waking up, and we know what citizen's arrest is, because citizen's arrests are already happening, okay? And every single one of you that are obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested. And you, doctor, are going to be arrested for crimes against humanity. Every single one of you.
They refused to wear masks or socially distance, justifying these decisions in irrationality, such as that it limited their freedoms. This is idiotic and makes absolutely no logical sense. You wear a seatbelt, don't you? So shut up. A parallel can be drawn here to the Black Plague and humanity's lack of understanding then. It was the close grouping of people and their inability or ignorance to hygienic practices that was an influencing factor to Yersinia pestis' spread. The only difference being that we actually know the science now, but there are just stupid people who deny it. This led to what professionals had warned us about: the spread of COVID on a global scale and a high infection rate. However, on December 11th, 2020, the FDA approved an emergency use authorization for a vaccine created by the company Pfizer, and a week later, one for another vaccine created by the company Moderna. Much like how we discovered antibiotics, a vaccine provided relief to concerned souls. It was an answer to a scourge, the promise of a brighter future that was stolen from us by the virus. However, once again, human stupidity has no limits. Same as with the suggested precautions, a large group of individuals challenged beyond reason the vaccine. Their challenges ranged from claiming they didn't know what was in the vaccine, despite that information being publicly available, to the vaccines being a conspiracy to inject trackers inside the population, as if anyone cares to track them, or as if they don't carry phones with a built-in GPS on them every day.
Your children and your children's children will be subjugated! They will be asked, how many vaccines have you had? Have you been a good little Nazi? Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! There's been a lot of talk about the Nuremberg Code!
And just like refusing an antibiotic when sick is irrational, so is refusing a vaccine during a pandemic. Yet, people did. And the misinformation spread to the dumbest of our population like wildfire. This led to our current state of affairs: another spike in COVID cases and hospitalizations, another potential lockdown, and many more dead. COVID didn't cause this, at least not on its own. We did. We coddled the dumbest of our population to the point of risking the health and safety of us all. And much like the Black Death was due to human ignorance, so is the extent of the COVID pandemic. Except this time it's not just that we didn't know, it's that we refused what we did know. It is hard to find sympathy for those who die from COVID when they were capable of receiving the vaccine but refused to do so. After all, you reap what you sow. However, this is a story for another day. This story is simply about the climb of COVID, a climb made possible by human stupidity, much like the climb of the Black Death. Make no mistake, the current state of the pandemic is our fault. And that will continue until we choose to learn from history and choose to be wiser.
Does being here in this situation, not being able to see your baby in person, make you start to reconsider at all not wanting the vaccine?
No.